Hey YouTubers, Craig the Muskoka painter here, and today we're enjoying winter wonderland. It's only about +1 out, but with the wind chill it's probably about -5 or less. Just thought you'd like to have a quick shot of the weather outside. So back to today's topic, how to strain your paint. We'll get right into the demonstration. This is what we'll be using to demonstrate our paint straining process. We have a bucket of paint that contains several used buckets of the same paint that have accumulated over a period of a few weeks to a month on a job. And so of course it's picked up some lumps that have to be strained out. You'll notice we have a perfectly clean empty bucket with the same label on it so that there's no confusion. And we also have some vinyl door screening and some duct tape. So what we want to do is take our empty, perfectly clean bucket and place the screening over the top of the bucket. We want to have enough screen that allows us to push in the surface a little bit, and that's going to contain our paint, and still have a little bit left over to adhere to the edge of our bucket. So now we can go ahead. We want to take our duct tape and just take off strips a couple of inches long, and it just tears like paper. And we just want to tack down those pieces on a few points on our bucket. So make sure that there's the edge of the screening is over the edge of the bucket. So that when we pour our paint in, it won't leak over the edges. And then once we have a few points tacked down, we can wrap the whole thing with tape. We want to do that because once we pour the paint in here, it gets quite heavy and may pull the entire setup into our new bucket of paint, and that will defeat our purpose. So if you like, you can push a little bit on there, make sure it's not going to collapse, and then we're ready to go. So the next step is fairly self-explanatory. We're just going to pour in the bucket of our lumpy paint into the fresh, clean bucket. We can start off very slowly. You can see how it's contaminated. You can see the lumps coming out there. It's probably a good idea to let the paint run through so it doesn't come right to the top. And just to double check that our tape is holding. Yep, seems to be working fairly well so far. So you may ask, why do we use the window screening? Well, you might find that the strainers that they sell in the hardware stores are too fine, especially when we're dealing with latex paint, which is somewhat thicker than lacquers or alkyd or oil-based paints. And so, since we're using latex the majority of the time, and our lumps are quite large, as you can see, we need the wider holes in the mesh, if you will. Especially when time is of the essence, it's a good thing to make sure we're using good paint, clean paint. And if we're spray painting, it's completely necessary to do this. But even if we're rolling, lumps in our paint can really give us headaches. So then once we've got the majority of the paint out, we can set up our cans like this and leave that for a little while, and we'll come back to it. So now that we've left our paint to strain out of the bucket for say 10 to 15 minutes, we just lift that off. And then we take our 2.5-inch brush and scoop out the rest. Start at the top of the can. Or I should say the bottom of the can. Just work it down towards you, get the majority of that out. Like so. And what you can do is clean this bucket out, wash all the residue out, and then it's ready to go again. But before you do that, you can take off this tape. There you can see the contamination that we strained off, and you can see how thick the paint is, that it's not really even running through this material that well, but it's narrow enough, the mesh is tight enough that the debris isn't falling through. Just get the worst of that paint off. And then put that in there, and you can wash both of those off. And then we have nice clean paint ready to go. And we can wash this bucket out, wash that screen off, we can reuse that again. Of course, wash our brush, and we're ready to go. So this has just been a quick demonstration on how to manage your paint, how to strain your paint. We were using a 5-gallon pail, but you could just as easily go through the same process with a 1-gallon pail. And if you do, it'll help keep your paint fresh and make your projects looking better and going smoother. So by all means, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them on my channel, and by all means subscribe. Until next time, it's been Craig, Muskoka Painter, helping you take paint out of paint.